Welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Michael, and today's episode is episode number 93, and Frank and I are sitting down with Emma Cruises and Matt from the Cruise Maps to talk about the new Cruise Globe, plus Emma gives us a recap of her recent preview sailing on the Norwegian Aqua. Let's jump into it.
All right, so as we mentioned at the top, today we have Emma from Emma Cruises and we have Matt as well. We're here to talk about a couple things. Number one, Emma just got off of the Norwegian Aqua yesterday, so super fresh. We want to hear about that. We also are here to talk about the cruise maps and the cruise globes. They've got a lot of really cool things. We actually have our map behind us. Matt has his map behind him. Emma's got some maps on the wall, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. We're really excited about all the things that are coming for the cruise maps and the cruise globes as well. But hey, before we do that, Matt, it's been 50 episodes since we chatted, so welcome back on. I think we had you episode 43, so exactly 50 episodes, and you gave a little bit of background on Cunard as well as some history on the cruise map. So if you haven't heard that one, go check it out. Go hear about the business and kind of why they started. And it's going to be cool now to hear a little bit of where they've come in the last 50 weeks. So pretty awesome there. And then Emma, welcome on to the Cruise Conversations podcast. We're excited to have you. Maybe you could give a quick intro, but before we do that, Emma is pretty big in the cruise world. She's got over 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. She's got a website. You can go check it out. I believe it's emmacruises.com. And she has tons of articles. I was just reading some stuff today on there as well. But Emma, welcome to the podcast. Maybe you could do like a quick intro on like just how you got into cruising and kind of the journey of how you got to where you are today.
Of course. Well, thank you for that nice introduction. That was really kind. Appreciate it. So I was very lucky because I started cruising when I was 11. So that was not my choice at all. My gran actually decided to take me on a cruise. And I just loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was the coolest thing. But I didn't realize that not everyone else thought that cruising was cool in the same way as I did. So when I got my first job, wanted to take my friends on a cruise, they said some really strange things. And I just decided to start a kind of hobby website way back in 2016. I don't know what motivated me back then. No one was there. No one was listening. But thankfully, I kept talking about cruises. And after the pandemic, I moved over from the insurance world into the cruising world. I've not looked back since. And yeah, now I create content about all different types of cruises. My aim really with that is someone can look at my content and decide, yep, or nope, that's not for me, or yes, that is. And I don't mind either way. I'm just trying to, condense it down into an easy to watch video. And that's what I do now.
That's awesome. I feel like we're kind of in the same boat. Like a lot of our friends would be like, why do you love cruising so much? And most of the people that are asking those questions, it's funny, they've never been on a cruise. So it's like you're trying to convey to them why they should give it a try, but they're like hesitant because they hear things about crowds or, just all the misconceptions about cruising. So it's really good to hear that you've been in the similar boat. And
yeah, it's tricky if someone has not ever seen a cruise ship. Like a lot of my friends have never seen a cruise ship in real life. You can't understand the scale. When I'm talking about there's 16 restaurants on board, if you've never stood next to a cruise ship, like there are 20-story buildings sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do the best that I can to sort of let people try before they buy a cruise, because I understand why people are nervous. If you're going to give up a week of your life, you're going to hand over quite a lot of money for it. People want to be sure that it's something that they're going to like. So, yeah.
And it's like, to your point, like it's worth doing the research before you hop on just like any cruise, especially when you see like a lot of the commercials today on TV and they show you like the glamorous new Icon or even like the Norwegian Aqua, but then you just go on the website and you book like the cheapest one and you're expecting like an Aqua or an Icon experience. It's like, okay, wait, you booked a cruise that was like built back in the 90s that's like on its last leg. So there's a lot of research that goes into it. Emma, what would you say is your favorite cruise you've ever been on? I know that's a hard question, probably for like different reasons with itinerary or maybe it was a brand new ship, but like what would you say is your favorite cruise overall that you've been? Was it the first one with Graham, you would say?
Well, I think I went back on that same ship again, the first cruise ship I ever went on. I went on it again last year in Japan, which is my favorite place to cruise, and it was kind of the perfect combination of everything for me. So I think that's probably my favorite cruise on board Norwegian Spirit, built in 1996.
Wow.
I think so. Yeah, quite an old small ship. I do love the new ships. but also, there's something just really special about those ones too.
All right, so before we jump into all the new and exciting things happening over at the cruise maps, like you just mentioned, yesterday you got back from the Norwegian Aqua. You were doing some preview sailings over on that. Let's just start there. How was the ship?
It was brilliant. It was quite an eventful cruise, to be honest. We weren't sure if it was actually going to happen at one point because the weather was so bad. They closed the port completely where we were supposed to board, and then they changed our itinerary. Nothing went as planned, but it was fantastic. It was so much fun. We did have some rough seas, but we did see some blue skies as well at the end. So yeah, it was good fun.
I saw the horn that they did, like the fog horn. I've never seen that on we're usually in the Caribbean, so you don't really have like a fog horn going often. So I saw that on yours. I was like, well, that's pretty cool, just to like alert the other ships nearby that like, hey, we're out here. Don't don't get too close.
Yeah, it's creepy, but I kind of love it. So they were doing that every other minute, I think. It was so windy. I was standing out there trying to film, being like, Emma, just wait for one more minute and then you can go in. You're going to get the bit when it does the foghorn. But it was interesting because the ship has these massive slides on it that are all lit up at night. So all you could really see is just fog in every direction and then this 10-story slide.
Oh my goodness.
So strange.
How was the we have to ask because we've talked about like slide coasters a lot, and obviously Disney's got their thing, but like how was it? We saw the video of you on the slide coaster, which is epic. Like, was it as good as like everyone's been hyping it up to be, or like what was your experience like on the slide coaster?
Yeah, I really liked it. So it's kind of an interesting mix of a roller coaster and a water slide. So for people who don't know, it's basically like a little roller coaster that launches you at 30 miles an hour into a water slide. You're not tied in or anything like that. You're shot up and into a water slide. And I've tried all of the slides. I've tried the 10-story drop slides. I've tried them on different cruise lines. I always try. But this is probably my favorite. It actually, once you get in there, it was quite a nice sort of, it wasn't so fast. You can see my face. I managed to record from inside the side.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just pottering along like, la, 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 this is fun. But it was great. It was really, really cool. We were quite lucky again, because obviously we had a lot of bad weather on that cruise. They did have to, they can't operate, I guess, if it's too windy or anything like that. But I got my slot as soon as they said it was open. I ran.
Yeah.
And it was great. No, it was good. It was good fun.
Matt, would you do it?
Happily do it. I feel like I've only experienced the more sedate side of cruising. I've my Cunard obsession has precluded me from water slides so far. But
I was gonna say I just listened to Emma's interview with I think Cruise Tips TV, and I was like laughing because like the difference, and I was actually talking to my parents about this this week about like how different it sounds like the Cunard experience is, and like Emma was like, I've got my like Norwegian nice outfits, and then like I've got like my Cunard, like I can really only wear this on like a Cunard cruise because it's like that level of fancy kind of dining and you dress up, and I mean it's cool. I would love to just experience it and like be able to see side by side. But then Emma, you said that even if you were to go on like a Royal or a Norwegian out of the UK, it still feels a little bit different than like what you would see if you went from Florida, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think we're a bit more, we kind of hold on to traditions a bit more. We like our afternoon tea, things like that. Even if you're on a random British cruise line, or even some of the American ones, they'll do sort of an afternoon tea, which is sweet. But yeah, I think it's also to do with the weather as well, because you're less likely to want to do all the formal dress and things in the Caribbean. Totally get it. But if you're, we cruise a lot out of the UK, Northern Europe, it's perfectly fine to put on a floor length gown for dinner if that's what you want to do. But yeah, I mean, Cunard don't have any of these slides yet. I don't think they'll go that way. But I do like both. I like both ends of the scale. I did the Queen Mary 2 transatlantic this year, so I've really gone from one extreme to the other. And yeah, it's just different things suit different people, and it's just getting the right people on the right ones.
All right, so kind of going back to some of the new stuff on the Aqua, were y'all able to experience any of like the new shows or any of those type of offerings on your sailing? And if so, how were they?
Yeah, so it has a really interesting theatre that transforms into a nightclub. Even if it was just a theatre, the way it's organised is very impressive. But after the show, they say to everybody, right, if you're on the lower level, can you move up? We're going to put all the seats down, slide them away, and then the party starts. The cool thing about that is that sometimes at the beginning of a party, it's kind of hard to get people like there and dancing and stuff, I feel like, on a cruise.
Oh, yeah.
But because there's already hundreds and hundreds of people there, it goes, the transition doesn't stop, which is really fun. But I got to see the Prince show, that's one of their main shows, and also Rumours. So Rumours is the Fleetwood Mac show that they used to have in a venue called Sid Norman's.
Yep.
I saw it on Prima, fantastic, but a very, very small venue, and you can queue for an hour to get a seat in there. And this time they've moved it into the theatre, which is brilliant, because that is what everyone was saying on Norwegian Prima. We all want to see it, show more people. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. I feel like a lot of the cruise lines are starting to like pick up on that, because you're right. Like the clubs on a cruise are just like not, I mean, at least for me, they're just not it right now. So like I think on Royal, they do like the crazy quest game show, and then they turn it into the club, the Red Nightclub, like, because they already have that big crowd. And then Virgin does something similar, right? Where they do like a show and then they kind of collapse it into a nightclub as well, which I think it makes sense, because yeah, it's like, who wants to, I know it's like kind of weird going into a club like on a cruise nowadays. I don't know, maybe it's just I'm not 16 or 17 or whatever anymore.
No.
So
But I do find on some cruises, if there's a standalone club that is only a club and it only opens at 10 p.m, like it's not used all day, which seems like a massive shame. And then it's kind of hard to get people to go in there.
Yeah.
But this was so much fun. You know, they had people down in the crowd who would be like, you know, dancing with the people on the stage. Like they were really trying to, if you feel a bit awkward, I'm not normally someone who will go into the middle of a dance floor
yeah.
for a random party, but I did on this one. You know, I've actually got it filmed and things, because it was easy to follow what they're doing on the stage, and you know, they kind of made it very easy. So I love that space. I think it's really, really cool. The Prince show was very interesting. I'm not a massive fan of Prince, I've got to be honest. So I sort of thought that it might be just like a Prince concert, and I was like, it might be a bit boring, to be honest. But it was not. It was not boring at all. They actually had a standing area like you would at a normal concert, which is very cool. And they would move around pieces of the stage. So sometimes the singers would be coming in from the side on these floating pieces of the stage. They would join it together to make that Prince symbol. Wow. And there were maybe 20 people on the stage at once, all in these sparkly outfits. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm not a massive Prince fan. Turns out I don't know as much Prince as I thought I did. I only knew a couple of songs. But some people went back day after day to see this show because they really, really loved it.
That's awesome. What about anything on the dining? Like I know they had some new, I think they had like a new Thai restaurant that they added. Was there anything that you guys got to try on there?
Yeah, I got to try the new Thai restaurant. Lovely. I think it's probably my favorite now. It used to be the Mexican. That was my favorite specialty. Okay. But I think the Thai is overtaking it. There's so many places to eat. I was on board for 8 days. There's no way you could eat everywhere in 8 days, I don't think, because there's so many. There's 2 included main restaurants. There's the buffet. There's the local, which is kind of a bar and grill. There's Indulge Food Hall, where you sit down, you order on these iPads, and the food comes. And that's the included food. And then there's, I don't know how many specialty restaurants, 8, 10, wow, maybe. But I tried 3. And I also got to stay in the Haven. So the Haven has its own restaurant as well. Yeah. So I ate as much as I could, but I couldn't complete the whole ship.
I was about to say, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about just like other types of specialty dining we'd like to see come to ships. And Thai is one I feel like a lot of ships don't have. And I just had Thai for probably the first time in a year or two, a couple of weeks ago for a friend's birthday. And I liked it. So I had like a red curry type thing that I was like, I got to figure out how to make this at the house now because it was so good. So having that on a ship seems super cool.
And Emma, like I feel like too, it's so funny because if you think about cruising back probably when you started, like there weren't that many specialty restaurants, like maybe one, but like it's so funny, like on all these new cruise ships, it's the new thing to add so many. And like even you look at like Virgin, which is a brand new line, they don't even put a main dining room. Like the whole thing is changing, right? Like, and even when I was on Icon last year, it's like not many people really were eating in the main dining room. Like people preferred like just a quick grab from the Windjammer or like the buffet or from, you know, the kind of like the food hall concept. But it's so interesting that cruising is just, it's changing with the new generation of people that are coming in that are just not used to like the longer sit down kind of experience. But then they do prefer kind of like the more kind of like you get on land, like the restaurant experience where it's a little more private, not as many people, more cooked to, you know, based on what you order, it's kind of more fresh. So it's interesting to see that it's changing a little bit in terms of the shift to specialty dining as well.
Yeah, it's just more choice, isn't it? I always find it so interesting how I can go on a cruise, someone else could go on that same cruise. We'll never eat in the same place. We might not watch the same shows. We have completely different experiences on the same ship. Whereas, as you say, the older ships, it used to be maybe steakhouse. Normally, there was always a steakhouse and sort of a teppanyaki, like where they cook the food, the show. That's all I remember, really. But yeah, now there's so much choice.
All right, so to kind of wrap up the Norwegian Aqua here, is there anything else that surprised you on your sailing or that you found interesting with the new Prima Plus class?
Yeah, so it's only 10% bigger than Prima. I cruised on Prima to Bermuda. So I think I have an interesting kind of insight because obviously this was a press cruise. Everyone was a travel agent, journalist, media, something like that. And it was about, I would guess, 50% full, which is great. So fun to experience, but also it's nice to know what it's like at full capacity as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of taking the things I managed to film everything without anyone in it. It was amazing. But also I know what that's like on a full sailing. So I think that's just interesting. What I like about those ships a lot is the promenade deck area. I know a lot of cruise lines are getting rid of the promenade deck, which is really sad, but Norwegian, they have... It's almost like the top deck of another cruise ship with the infinity pools and all of the seats and lounges, and you can eat out there, and all the specialty restaurants go out onto the promenade deck.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's really nice. I wish more cruise ships would do that. It's so depressing when you get on a cruise ship. You want to wander around the promenade deck, and it either doesn't go all the way round, or you're just looking at lifeboats. I want to see outside. And that's what I think Norwegian do really well. Everything is about looking outside. I get asked a lot to compare Royal Caribbean to Norwegian, which is really hard for a start. I love both. But I think on Norwegian, you sort of look outside more. Royal Caribbean, you look more in, and you're doing things like, I've done the bumper cars and everything exciting that's happening inside. But on Norwegian, it's more about, always looking out at the ocean, which suits me.
Yeah. We said that when we were on Allure right before it headed across over towards you guys for the amplification. But we said like we had dining at 5:00. So when we had like a boardwalk balcony, so we actually faced inside too on that one. But we were like, with all the activities that we were doing during the day, we didn't see we actually didn't even see the ocean until like the first sea day, because we were like, the times that we were pulling off the dock, like we tried and we couldn't make it work with dinner timing. So by the time we saw the ocean for the first time, it was like like when we were underway, it was probably the third day on the cruise. We're like, this is actually the first time we've seen us moving, just because we've been inside, we've been going to shows, we've been at dinner, we didn't have like a view of the ocean.
And moving with the sun out. I mean, once the sun goes down and it's dark,
you can't
it's dark.
see anything.
Yeah, but like just like a nice sea day, seeing, like you said, everything out around you. Yeah, it was like that third day, which was crazy.
No, I like it too. I had a cruise recently on Symphony of the Seas. So much fun, but also I could have stayed on that ship without it moving for 7 days, and I would have had almost as much fun because I was, ice skating and like all these things inside, but I wasn't sitting out on the promenade deck. That wasn't how that cruise was.
I think, and it's a good point. I think they're trying to be better on Royal with like the icon and opening up the promenade, but it's definitely something that like I think all cruise lines can improve on. So that's pretty cool. Well, Emma, thank you so much for the review of NCL Aqua. Are you planning on getting back on board anytime soon, or are you kind of going to give it some time to age a little bit?
I think I'm going to give it some time because I did do Prima quite recently. I've been on Aqua now, and I'm going to go back on one of the older ones again because I do really like the older Norwegian ships, the 90s ones. They're just special to me. So yeah, at some point, just no plans right now to go back on Aqua.
Matt, what about you? Any cruises coming up anytime soon on your docket?
Yeah, I actually have one next week. So going up from Southampton to the Norwegian fjords for a week. Again on Cunard, so QM2, which will be quite fun. I'm going with my mum. First time I've been up to the fjords at all. So yeah, looking forward to that one a lot. And then trying to get something booked over in the Caribbean like late in the year. But figuring out what's best. It's going to be, as you said earlier, it's like a shock to the system going from Cunard QM2 to maybe like Icon of the Seas, seeing both ends of the spectrum.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, I feel like that would be an episode that I would just want to listen to and just hear, like, your thoughts on.
I feel like I should just jump in the deep end and go.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Norwegian or the fjords would be incredible. That's one that I know we've talked about a lot, and that's on our bucket list too. So, any big excursions that you have planned on that one?
No, it's quite. There's some good stops on it. So it's only a week from Southampton, so you don't get to go too far up the coast. But I've spent a lot of time. Emma's got the map behind her, but or a map of the fjords. But yeah, I've spent quite a lot of time in Oslo, but I've never been over to the coast of Norway. So I'm just going to kind of check out each of the cities on that we're going to. We're going to Stavanger and Bergen, which are quite big cities, and then some fjords, like small villages and fjords like Olden, which are I think going to be a little bit more kind of walkable, really, like just walk around. But I have no massive idea what to expect really, so I'm just kind of like play it by ear.
I'm sure Emma has a video out there so you can watch and see what to expect, right, Emma?
All right. Well, so like we said at the start, it's been almost a year since we last spoke, Matt, and your business was pretty new at the time. The Cruise Maps, kind of getting that out there, and a lot's happened in the last year. I mean, you've released new products with the Cruise album. You have the Cruise Globe. Emma's joined you now. So let's kind of just start there. Like, what's the past year look like for y'all over at the Cruise Maps?
Recap, because I think we were speaking to each other 6 months in, so it was really really fresh. Cruise album's a really big change for us. One of the things we realized pretty early was that the people who love the Cruise Maps run out of wall space after some point, right? And that's a problem. And we wanted to basically make sure that the conversation continues. And part of that was creating a way to display them off the wall. But it turned out that there was no real good way to. Well, there was no good product out there that was high quality enough to display the maps that we have. So we went and built it ourselves. So we actually have got one here, that this is the Cruise album. It's like a cloth bound book that you can put on a coffee table and then have your maps within it. And so I have that on my shelf all times, and like it's a real conversation starter, which is really cool. And then you obviously, when Emma joined us, things took off as you might expect, which is awesome. But the big change in the last couple of months has been the Cruise Globe, and this is kind of the I suppose the logical next step. We kept getting this question of like, it's great to have our maps on the wall or in the Cruise album, but is there anywhere I can see them all together? Is there anywhere we can kind of interact with them more? And that just spoke to a digital platform. So we set up this website that allows you to see your entire cruise history, exact routes, exact statistics, all for free. And that's, I think it's fair to say, that's taken off in the last 5 weeks since it was launched.
I was going through last night and I was updating mine to make sure that it was up to date for this conversation. But at one point I was like, all these routes look pretty standard, and then all of a sudden I saw one that was like circles, and I was like, what in the world? And I remember, Michael, we had like that hurricane cruise.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, why is this like, it was around Coco Cay and it literally was like 20 circles. Cause like at one point I did like 10 of them and they were all kind of like boring. And then I found that one, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, I was like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. Like, I want to see something like so unique. And then I obviously follow you guys and I see just like some of these super cool and like the stories behind, like, okay, we had to do like a medical drop off here, and just kind of like just the story of the cruise, and or maybe there was a weather situation and we went one way and then we quickly pivoted. It's just really cool to see in one spot. But the vision's there. I definitely want to get my hands on one of those albums though, Matt. That looks really cool. Just like you said, to have on the coffee table, to really see all of your cruises laid out. How does it work in terms of adding new cruises? So, right. So like, let's say I go ahead and I buy an album. Like, is it pretty easy to slide in like a new page to the album? How does that work?
Yeah, so they're handmade in the UK. We send the albums out from the UK, a bit unlike our products, our maps generally, where we have print facilities around the world. But so the actual cover, it's cloth bound, really like nice high quality brass fittings within it. But the sleeves within it that actually hold the maps, there are 25 of them, and they're kind of, they're archival quality plastic sleeves essentially. So you can slot in each of your first 25 maps into those slots. And so you can add them as you go. That was obviously really important for us. Like, we could obviously print a book of your cruise history, but then what happens when you go on your next one, right? And so it needed to be something that you could add to. And I guess that's obviously the point of the Globe as well, is everything comes back to, like your point with that. it's so interesting how many cruises actually don't follow the intended route, and that's where the story is. That's the thing you're likely sitting there on the sofa talking to your family and friends about when they come over for dinner is what happened at this point, and like whether that's in the album or whether it's on an iPad with the globe and you can zoom right in. It's just a means to tell that story.
I think one thing too that I was gonna add is like there it's cool because like to your point, you can really see the map out on the globe before you go to buy it, right? And I think that's like something where I'm like, now I'm looking at this one from like 6 years ago. I'm like, dang, that's kind of cool to have on the wall because it's not like a traditional one. But like, if I was just on the website like looking to buy a map, like that wouldn't have been a cruise I probably would have wanted on the wall. But now that it's like circled around Coco Cay in a weird way, like it's kind of a cool one to tell the story. To your point, like it's part of the story that hey, we got trapped in a hurricane and like we couldn't get back to, or we got delayed and there was a lot of unknowns on where the storm was going to go, and like boom, look at this thing on the wall that like shows how many times we circled this island. And I didn't even remember it because when you're on the ship you don't like, it's not like you're logically thinking about, oh, the route is this, unless you do like a quick circle and like obviously the pools whatever. But when you're on the ship you're not like, you don't really even know the route, like it's not like they socialize that. So you would only really know if you had access to this data like you guys do.
Yeah, it's really hard to get your bearings as well when you're away from the coast, you're in the middle of the sea. It's you're not going to necessarily know what's happened, and frankly, the cruise line don't necessarily want you to know in some cases. Like if you're diverting from the route, but those are the interesting stories. Those are the bits that are different, frankly, and that people want to talk about.
And Matt, I think I've seen on some of your social media over at the Cruise Maps that y'all have some partnerships with some different cruise lines and actually like have displays on the ship. So talk about that a little.
Yeah, so Cunard's one of the cruise lines we partnered with, and so what we do with the maps, the print maps, is we basically work with a series of cruise lines, largely European ones at the moment. So we're working with Cunard, P&O, Marella, Fred Olsen, Hurtigruten, a few others, where we will essentially make a branded version of the maps that they can promote on board to their guests. So we have the Cunard, like I actually got a Cunard one behind me on the wall. And then it's a great platform for us because it means we can kind of get in front of guests, on the in-cabin TVs and, flyers in the rooms and displays on board. And it just kind of allows us to reach more people.
Oh, Emma, who is that?
This is Hudson. He's the one. He's the real cat behind this guy. This is the real guy.
Oh, Hudson.
He's the real one.
That's awesome.
And then Emma, you have some branded maps too, right? Or did for a period of time?
I do, yeah. So what I like is I have my album. I have two because I've done quite a few cruises. And the ones where we have partnerships with cruise lines, they have all the nice colors and the logos. And some of them we have little like drawings of the ship on them. And yeah, some of them have my Emma Cruises logo on them, which is really, really cool.
And let's kind of talk about that partnership because like we said, that's since the last time we talked with Matt, that's another new thing is you joining the team. Kind of just talk about that.
Yeah, so for me, going back before I even knew about the cruise maps, my personal journey with maps started in 2017. So I started my website in 2016. And in 2017, I designed a map, a massive magnet map that I used to have on my fridge. And I used to sell them on Etsy for a while. So that people could put little magnetic pins on their ports and join them together. Obviously, it was terrible, and I'm sorry to anyone who bought them in 2017, but I wanted a way to show my cruise. There was no way to do that then. I couldn't get the data, it didn't exist for me. So that was my attempt. So then when I came across this company, I met Matt and Will. At the time, it was, we didn't have all the things that we have now. It was pretty much just Prince of Cruises, right? And a bit more simple. But I thought this is exactly what I want. Now I know people who know how to make these things happen. Yeah. And I had so many ideas about what I wanted to do with this. Like the cruise globe, the cruise globe is completely free. I think we should say that and say that loudly. And now when I have an idea, I have no shortage of ideas, but when I have an idea, I have a team and colleagues who like it as much as me and can get things to happen, which is so much fun. So yeah, best thing I've done in the last year for sure. Absolutely having so much fun with it, especially Cruise Globe. It's so cool for me to be able to see my cruise history, and I can, because I'm telling stories about my cruises all the time, I can really zoom in, go in 3D. I can say, this is how close we got before the ship turned around and decided we couldn't dock.
Yeah.
And you can see it right there. Or you can see, on some cruises you go in the complete wrong direction. I'm looking forward to seeing my one from Aqua, where we, the bad weather meant the ship couldn't get in. It was literally going around in circles. So yeah.
I was about to say, a couple weeks ago, I started going through and plotting all of my cruises on the globe. And just some stats for me. I mean, I calculated 11,604 nautical miles sailed so far, 58 days,
Wow.
11 cruises on 11 different ships. So I think that's kind of cool. I still haven't done one ship twice yet, over 3 different lines. So Carnival, Royal, and MSC. And then 20 ports in 11 countries. And I think the countries is the one. I mean, obviously, the Med cruise being one of my bigger cruises, and even looking at the globe, I mean, most of my cruises are all the Caribbean, but seeing the Med one and just the stops over there and all the countries over in Europe is super neat.
Yeah, that was eye-opening for me. I think I was around 20,000. I still have some that are like pending the data, because I couldn't figure out, this is one thing for you guys maybe, is like, I couldn't figure out, I had to go back and remember like which port we sailed from, which was kind of hard for us because we have a lot of options. Like, to me, like, whether I went out of Port Canaveral, Miami, or Fort Lauderdale, it's like pretty interchangeable. I'm getting on a plane and going to that spot. So it was hard to really remember that part. But once I got all that information, I think I was around 20,000 miles. I think I was over 100 days on board. But I looked at, we know it was interesting, is like how many times I've gone just from like to the Bahamas to like like Florida to Coco Cay in the Bahamas. Like that little path was like pretty much like just shaded. Like every single piece of ocean was covered on that. And it's kind of sad because my wife's like, we need to branch out some more. And I was like, yep, now that I looked at this cruise globe, I can really agree that we need to stop doing the same itineraries, but just creature of habit, honestly. So I'm one of those people that's opposite of Michael. I've gone on a lot of the same ships, like Harmony, Symphony, a lot. Independence of the Seas, I think it was another one that I've been on probably 4 times. So yeah, definitely different. You've not repeated one. I've repeated a lot.
And for us, I think if you look at Emma, there's probably not a patch of sea outside of Southampton she hasn't covered yet. So.
The English Channel is just all coloured in. It's really interesting to me because I don't know anything really about shipping lanes or anything like that in the Channel, but you can see the ships following always the same route. And when we need to kill time, it does the same square box in the other direction, which I never would have known about because you just see the sea in every single direction.
Yeah.
You have no idea where you're actually going. But it's really interesting to me to see where they stick to that route and where, I did a lot of cruises just after COVID where we couldn't dock anywhere and we were literally going around in circles. And there's some really interesting patterns there where they thought, this is where the sun is. I'll go float around there for a day and come back.
That's a great point. Like a lot of it is probably like weather related and also just like safety, right? Like they want to be close to other ships, especially when you're going off into the Caribbean where there's not a lot of land. They kind of follow that same path so that you can usually see other ships nearby. So you're right. They've got like these channels and lanes that they kind of stick to. Emma, do you want to throw like, I don't know if you know your stats off the top of your head, but I'm sure you're at like, what, like 100,000 miles, like 300 days or something?
I'm at 86,000 miles, but at the moment that doesn't include river cruises, so I do have quite a few more river cruise miles to add. In total, of all the cruises I've done, I'm at 76 now. If we count every single one-day press launch or every time I've ever got a cruise card and unpacked, then I'm counting that as a cruise. No surprise, my top cruise line's Norwegian Cruise Line, followed by MSC, and then the British cruise line Marella, interestingly. Don't know if I would have guessed that, but yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that Emma's done exactly what most Globe users are starting to do now is when they report their stats, they're giving a little caveat of like, but it would be higher if, you know.
Well, yeah, we'll get there soon, but yeah.
No, it's a good point actually because we don't currently have river cruises on it, although we have just launched river cruise maps in the print side of the business for the very first time. So North American and European cruise maps are live.
Nice.
We're just holding fire a little bit before we launch them in the globe as well, because contrary to what you would expect, river cruises are just way, way, way harder to map. There's just it's much more intricate when you're going along a channel rather than across an ocean.
But they still use the same like satellite, I guess, technology. Okay.
Underlying data, but you can imagine and Will, our technical co-founder in this, will probably kill me for this description, but we are essentially connecting dots, right? Like there's a data point of where the ship was every, say, 5 or 10 minutes. Well, if you're going along a particularly windy river, it's really easy for that to cut through a headland or cut through like a meander in the river. I won't even attempt to get more technical than that for my own. Like that's the challenge. But yeah, no, it's so cool, the stats and seeing how people are engaging with them. The whole thing with the globe that we're trying to create is a way to share it in a. We've created a passport that shows all your stats and allows you to share it really easily on social media, etc. And people are really engaging with it nicely, which is great. That's the whole intention, I think.
I'm a data nerd, I would say. So I love like the numbers, and so I have a couple questions. I don't know if you guys have these ready or not, but like I know Emma said 86,000. What is do you have the number of like the most miles or most nights that anyone has sailed? Like who's your number one? Like do you give them like a free map? Like, dude, thank you. You are like legendary, or like how does that work? And yeah, what is that number? I'm just curious. Like what's the most that someone's logged on there?
I can't tell you nautical miles off the top of my head, but we know that Gary Bembridges, Tips for Travelers, really well-known content creator in cruising, he's at 497 nights, I believe, in total, which
That's
is
awesome.
the goal.
crazy, like a year and a half. So, yeah, and that's not including, obviously, as I have to caveat for him here, but not including the river cruises and whatnot, I'm sure. So the other thing is, obviously, this data goes back to the start of 2015, right? So there are some of the users who come to us and they've been cruising for 30 years. You can enter the cruises before 2015, but the satellite data just doesn't exist. So that's actually one of the next things we're building, and it kind of speaks to your point about like the general routes that these ships tend to take. Is we now know from the 125,000 cruises that people have logged in the cruise globe, the most common route and the aggregated route between pretty much every pair of ports you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that, we can start to include pre-2015 cruises based on where they likely would have gone based on that data, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, while it's not perfect, obviously, and no one's ever going to magic up satellite data from 1976, it's cool to at least have those stats in there based on like a realistic estimate,
Yeah, like you guys know, like you have the same route probably already done out of 125,000. Just throw it on there, and it'll be close enough for your stats to have an accurate. I mean, it's not going to be to the actual mile, but close enough within 100 miles probably.
And then we'll introduce leaderboards, and then all hell will break loose.
Then I'll just be cruising to be at the top. We'll be competing.
Yeah. How about any other just statistics from either number of cruise ports that have been plotted on the globe, or number of countries, or just any other fun stats to share?
Well, top 3 cruise lines is interesting in the sense that we have a bit of a UK focus at the moment, but still Royal in the lead, with 17,000 cruises logged from Royal, from users, and then P&O, and then Princess. And you see that focused on the UK, with Southampton being 18,700 cruises starting in Southampton as well. I think most of those are Emma. And then Iona is our most logged ship in the platform, with 7 million miles logged in total.
Wow.
So
that is crazy.
People really like. I mean, she's an enormous ship in the UK, and obviously we've started this in the UK 5 weeks ago. So there is a sort of skew towards UK and British users at the moment, but that's it's available worldwide. But we're obviously word is spreading from the UK slowly.
So everyone who's not in the UK, get on and add your American cruises, and then you can come to the top.
Yeah, Anthem of the Seas is third with 4.4 million miles. So
And that's another one that sails out of the UK quite often, at least in the last few years. I
there you
feel
go.
like.
There you go. Exactly. We need Icon of the Seas to be up there
Yeah.
very soon.
I mean, two of the anthems are mine.
So let's talk a little bit now in terms of what's next, right? Like you guys are doing some awesome things. I know, Emma, you have a ton of really cool ideas. We have some questions. So number one, right now, this is on a website format. At some point, right, we're planning on launching this in a mobile app form as well, right? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's. I think the thing that people don't often recognize with building this kind of platform is that building an app is super expensive. So, this is a free tool at the moment. We fund it through selling print maps, frankly, and so we wanted to see first that people like it, that it works for people, they share it, they enjoy it, because it's totally new, right? It hasn't existed before. We have that validation now. You know, we've just ticked over 20,000 users who are on the Cruise Globe, which is awesome. And so, yeah, actually, next up, we're aiming to get and again, I might be killed here for for saying this publicly, but we are aiming to get this live by the summer.
Wow.
A mobile app. By
You
the
heard it here
summer.
first.
Yeah, exactly. You have me on record now. But yeah, no, we recognize the importance. It's a travel-based app, right? And for a lot of people, logging into a website is nowhere near as seamless as having an app in your pocket, right? So that's very high on the list. But we have massive plans for this as well, right? It's very much. It's not just, I say just, going to be a tool to log your cruise history. It's going to show you everything about where cruises are in the world right now. It's going to allow you to enter all your future cruises, all the ones you have booked. And then, frankly, if people are engaging with it enough, then I think we're getting some amazing feedback at the moment that it's the perfect interface for booking as well, maybe, in the sense that, people are seeing their entire cruise history visually for the first time, seeing where they have been, where they haven't been, what they've engaged with before. Well, it's not a massive leap to say, well, can we put itineraries on here, and can we target people and target in a really useful way, right? Target people with things that they are going to find interesting based on their past cruising history. And if you're anything like me, I actually find the booking process, unless you go down the route of using an agent, to be pretty labyrinthine. It's a bit of a mess in many places, and like there's a real opportunity there, I think, to do booking in a completely different way. And again, that's a little way off for us yet, but that's the kind of direction we're looking in.
The booking thing's super interesting because, like I said, when I was even looking at my globe, most of my cruises are in the Caribbean. Done the one in the Med. We had a fan write in a question and answer a couple weeks ago asking if we ever going to hit Asia someday. And then, Emma, you were saying how you love cruising Japan and kind of seeing some of that. And like, when I get to that part of my globe, well, look, I see nothing there right now. So it's like,
yeah,
you almost like you were saying, like,
click this and you could see like options or whatever to add, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be really cool.
Or even if you could see other people's, right? Like if you could see, you've just heard Emma love Japan. Well, what if you could see her cruise in Japan, the photos she took, what she was doing, the shore excursions she took? Obviously, if you set that to be public, or inherently that would be a factor. But like, I think we are inherently looking to others also for recommendations, right? And there's no better way to see that from their cruising history and what they thought about that. So if you build reviews, photos, logged sort of feelings on different aspects of cruises in one place and allow people to engage with that, I think it creates a completely different landscape for booking. That's a fair way down the line, I will say. Like that's not coming by the summer. But
I mean, how nice for me to get back from a trip and to say, right, here you go, here's the one I took. And then you say, oh, I've watched Emma's video on board Norwegian Spirit, love that ship. Where is she going to be? And we can plot out where that ship is going to be in the world, or which ones are doing the same itinerary I did. It's really weird to me how... I feel like the cruise industry is left behind in so many ways. But like you say about booking cruises, you normally book the itinerary is kind of the last thing you look at. You look at where it goes from, but you don't always see until you get really into the details of where the cruise is actually going. So if you want to book a cruise that hits a certain port, you can't just go on the MSC website and say, I want to book a cruise that goes to this place. There's not an option for that, is there? You have to go through the itineraries and see what goes where. But if you could zoom into the cruise globe and say, I really want to go to Dubrovnik, for example, and see which ships will be there in a certain month or something, I think that would be really cool.
I agree. I think the social aspect of it too is what
Yeah.
I'm mostly excited about with the opportunities here, because I do think that they're like, I think Cruise Critic or someone has where you can log your cruises and you can see like your upcoming and things, but it's not anywhere intuitive like the Globe, right? So I think what I like about the Globe is that you can see like, again, like it's kind of competitive, but you can see your friends and you can see like, okay, where did they go in the past? Like you could have followers, right? Like people could follow us and follow Emma or follow Matt and see kind of where they've been. And like when we do a review, you can actually go in and see like our itinerary, or you could just see what's upcoming. Like, oh, I want to be on the cruise with Emma. Emma, when are you? And I can see like what's upcoming. Maybe that's a little stalkerish, and maybe you wouldn't want that public. But you could choose like private or public, and go from there. So there's like a lot of really cool things on like the sharing aspect of this Globe that I think really excites me as well.
Yeah, the choice will definitely be there, and like the first step is obviously making sure that people can see your own live cruises as they happen,
Right.
and add your future cruises, because you need this like whole end-to-end picture of it, just not just the past story. And then once you have that, then the social element of being able to see others is something that you can just build on top. And
Yeah.
again, the app opens that up even more, right? Because that sense of like doing it live while you're on a ship or while you're traveling is, I think, going to be the whole point.
And that, like you just said live, so you're saying I'll be able to get on the app and kind of see in real time the path forming between my different stops.
Yeah, which technically exists now, right? You've
Okay.
got sites like Cruise Mapper that do live views, but nothing that then feeds into your cruise history, right?
Yeah.
And then nothing that then shows you what you've got lined up in terms of the 4 itineraries you've probably booked up until 2026, right? And that's the thing we're trying to achieve here, is like it's the one-stop shop for all of your cruises, future, current, and past. And then, of course, start looking outwardly to other people that you want to find out about, be they content creators like Emma, or be they family members or friends, or seeing what your friends have lined up is obviously such an interesting thing for a cruiser, particularly people who meet other cruise fans on board who want to intersect with them again, and they want to share where they're going, what they've got lined up. You can just totally see how that becomes something interesting. And I think, to your point, like there are apps and services out there that have tried to do this in the past, but some of them are 15, 20 years old, right? And they are lists of words on a page rather than tracks on a map. And I think it's just a low fidelity way of looking at it. So I'm excited by it, as you can probably tell, but I think there's a lot of potential. Yeah.
So I have a question about the maps, going a little bit off of the cruise globes. So I saw we have these like mixed tiles. I don't know if they've made their way to your neck of the woods yet, but basically they're like these magnets that you can put on your wall and you can easily hang. Have you guys looked into just different ideas on your cruise maps, or like explored? I know it's a little complex, probably because you're working with companies to print and there's limitations on all of this, but have you explored different options as well on like hanging? I mean, it's really easy to hang mine on the wall, but like just anything new on the maps that you're looking into that you're able to share? Or has it been pretty business as usual, all focused on the cruise globe side of the house for now?
Again, able to share is such a tough one for me, because I shoot from the hip and tell you things I probably shouldn't. But but yeah, the album's been a big push in that direction of like same concept you're saying there, which is there a different way to display them in the frame? We are all about trying to create collections. I think the magic of this product is the ability to see your whole cruise history, and that has to be possible. And like your point on mixed tiles is a great one, as something we could do. one thing we're looking at that I think could be really fascinating for people who like collecting things and like sort of displaying everything in one place would be we're thinking about emulating the cruise card, which a lot of people collect already,
Yes,
but
that's awesome.
with maps on them of the exact route and statistics from that, and then creating a product that allows you to store them or display them, maybe on your wall, but maybe like in an album or and sort of maybe this is harking back to my youth with football cards and stuff. And I'm sure you guys have baseball cards in the States, but it's that same. I love collections. I love that sense of like being able to one do it more accessibly, right? And like some people who've been on 100 cruises, they're just not going to buy 100 maps for their wall, and that's a given, and that's absolutely fine. So what would they engage with?
The cards are super cool. I mean, that is to me because I feel like a lot of people you see on TikTok or whatever, and they're like showing their thousands of cruise cards on the wall, and I'm like, man, if I only started that, like I think I have like 4 or 5 probably in that box over in the other corner. But like if I had started that, back in 2015, and to me that's like such a cheap. I don't know how much it would cost, but like it seems a lot cheaper than a map to produce a card like that. And super cool to like they're small. You could lay them out. You could create something on a table that you create kind of like a plastic thing. The cards that's a really awesome idea.
That's something we're working on next quarter as well. So then again, you might see something by the summer there too. So
Wow. Okay. All right. A lot of
we
announcements
never
on this
we,
one.
we never stand still. We never stand still. I can tell you that. So yeah.
That's awesome. But last night I was going through and adding some cruises, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but one of the things it asks you if you're going through, if you're looking at this, you go onto the cruise globe, you can search it on Google. It basically asks you a couple questions. One, what was the start date and end date, right? And what was the ship, as well as what was the port that you embarked on and then disembarked on. I think the part that I struggled with the most was probably the getting the embark and disembark ports just from like 10 years ago, just not remembering truly where I was where I was boarding that ship. In terms of things that you guys are working on, is that something that you're looking into as well? I think when there was like a little bit of an issue, I think I ran into maybe on a couple cruises where it said data being checked. So I don't know if that's something that you guys are currently working on, or what does that process look like, I guess, when you go in and maybe you don't find that itinerary right away? Are there people in the back end kind of working to add those?
Yeah, this is a question we get a lot. It's the reason there's a big beta sign at the top of the page still,
Yeah.
because it's not a seamless, perfect experience every time. What's happening there is that, and actually interestingly, this is the reason why we often get the statement that like that people are surprised this doesn't already exist as a platform like it does for flights or other forms of travel. The reason is that the satellite data that we use to create this is imperfect, right? Particularly when you go back a little way, earlier cruises, there can be gaps in the data, and by gaps it might be like there's a 2 hour period in a
Oh,
in a
wow.
2 week cruise where we don't have points on the map, and so if you were to just connect between those 2 points, well, that might go through an island or it might go through a headland. It might not look great, right? I think most people realize that that's okay in a 2 week cruise, and there's other ways to figure out what happened in that 2 hour period, but it has to be done manually. So we have a team of 17 people working full time on
Wow.
those manual checks. There have to date we've done 18,500 manual checks from the 125,000 cruises that have been logged, and that's in 5 or 6 weeks. So it's pretty full on. But the good news is that it's a finite problem, right? Because there are only the data for this satellite data only goes back to the start of 2015. There are around about 250,000 cruises that happened since 2015. So at the moment, about 20% of the cruises need to be checked. So you can do the maths there, or it's about 50,000 cruises to check. Once we've checked those 50,000 cruises that need a manual validation, then everyone's experience should be that they put their details in, and the map comes up immediately with the exact accurate route, which is kind of what everyone expects, right? So that's that's the reason no one's done it before. Anyway, it's seriously a chunky bit of work.
Wow. That is, I didn't realize. I mean, you don't think about the complexity that goes into the data plotting. I wonder too if it's one of those things where it's like after you guys manually do so many of those tweaks, like there's some sort of learning process that could come with like a robot, like machine learning or something that could be implemented. But it seems like it does need like a human validation, because to your point, you would want it to not go through an island. But if you have two plots, you totally could draw a straight line, but it just wouldn't look good. So no, that's super interesting.
The thing to recognize, if you do get that message comes up when you add a cruise to the globe that your data is being checked, is that you're quite special. You're the first person to put that particular cruise into the globe, right? Because once it's done once, it's there. So it means you're the only one who's gone on it, who's logged it.
You should add that. Congratulations. You are a lucky winner. You're the first person to log this. Just give us a few days and we'll get back to you. But pretty cool that out of all the thousands of people that have done it so far, you have not. Yeah. No one else has logged this one.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of work involved, that's for sure.
Well, awesome. I mean, you guys are great. It's super cool to hear, obviously, what's going on with the Cruise Globe and the cruise maps. Is our discount code still live? I think it is.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. I don't know if it works for the albums, but at least for the maps, right? People can use.
It works for the albums. It works for the
All
map.
Right.
Cool. Site.
So people, if you're listening and you want to get an album or a map, we've got one behind us. I've got one over here that I need to hang, but you can use CC for Cruise Conversations, CC15 to get 15% off your map. But Emma and Matt, thank you so much. Obviously, Emma, great meeting you, and Matt, great having you back on. We look forward to hearing more, maybe in another 50 weeks. Hopefully, we don't have to wait 50 weeks to hear from you guys. So we'll make sure it's sooner than then.
We'll check in.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. This has been fun.
Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. We just want to say thanks again to Matt and Emma for coming on the podcast this week to talk about all the new things going on over at the Cruise Maps. So make sure you go get a map of your previous cruise at thecruisemaps.com. You can use our code CC15 for 15% off your order. And make sure to go create an account on the Cruise Globe and start plotting your cruises on there. It's such a cool way to see all your cruises in one place. And if you're ready to book your next cruise vacation, we'd love to help you with the planning process. Make sure to either fill out the jot form in our bio or shoot us a text at 704-313-8556. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday.